Hey guys, Texas Slim here. I am in Austin, Texas, capital city of Texas. I moved here when I was 19 years old and I had $125 in my pocket. Well, today I'm sitting in a backdrop and I think it tells a lot of stories. Austin has grown. The food supply has changed. Our market access to beef has changed. And today I have the president of the U.S. Cattlemen's Association, Dr. Brooke Miller, with us. Brooke, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Just one correction. Technically, I'm the immediate past president. I was
Okay, immediate past. That's correct.
immediate past president. Yeah.
Immediate past president of the U.S. Cattlemen's Association, and that's a good lead in. Let's lead in with the association first, and then we'll kind of talk about your medical history and where you come from, Brooke.
Sure. You want to know a little bit about United States Cattlemen's Association?
Yeah, I think it causes a lot of confusion when we say that. I don't think that people really understand the collaboration of what it truly is and the power behind it and the grassroots movements that you do and facilitate.
We are truly a grassroots organization and movement. I'm a founding member and just finished my term as presidency over 3 years. We basically are an organization that promotes promotes anything that's important to grassroots cattle ranchers, cattle feeders, backgrounders, cow-calf guys, because as you know, this world has become dominated by big multinational packers who basically have a monopoly over our industry. And our organization, we have a presence in Washington, D.C., and we basically are trying to work for cattle ranchers on a day-by-day basis all over this country. And whatever issue is important to the cattle rancher is important to us. And truly, we're our grassroots organization because our members vote on all of our policy. And it's not the president or the executive team or the board telling ranchers what they ought to be thinking and saying and wanting. It's us listening to the ranchers and the people that we represent. We're a national organization.
Yeah, and that's some really good clarity. And we're going to come back to that as we get into our dialogue here. Brooke, I want you to kind of explain, you have some history in this. You're multi-generational as far as ranching is concerned. You chose to go into medical. You end up, living close to the Shenandoah Valley, the Shenandoah National Park. Your ranch is out there in Virginia, outside of Washington, Virginia. Give us a little back history of your family, of who you are, and kind of your why of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and the what and the how, really.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm a 8th generation Virginian. Live right here on this ranch or live in this area in Rappahannock County. Virginia, it's right at the base of the Blue Ridge Mountains, one of the most beautiful places on the face of the earth. 3rd generation cattle rancher. Unfortunately, I'm a dying breed. And I remember, you probably heard me talk about this before, Slim, but just for our viewers, I've been a cattleman since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. I mean, I've loved animals and livestock, but loved cattle, and it bonded with me with my father. And we used to spend a lot of summer evenings and even evenings the rest of the year, but summer were the longest days. We'd spend a lot of summer evenings walking through the pasture, looking at cattle, checking cattle, and talking. And I was a little boy, and finally one day my dad asked me, he says, "Son, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "Dad, I want to be a cattle rancher. I want to raise cattle and ranch." And he looked at me in all seriousness and he said, "Well, you better find another good job." And that really hit me. And today it continues to hit me because I have 4 children and none of them are going to be able to continue with what I do unless they have a really sizable outside income. Because unfortunately, while the cattle industry is not subsidized by the government, it is subsidized by outside money. And I know a lot of really good ranchers that work their butts off, are really smart, and unfortunately, they're not getting paid for their product, as neither are most cattle ranchers. And I've just pretty much taken it on as one of my life's missions to try to rectify that situation. It's not right. It's harmful in multiple ways to our country. It's basically raping rural America of wealth and economic value. It's harming our nation's citizens and their health. I took my father's recommendation and I went on to become a physician, which I now have 2 full-time jobs. I'm a family physician here in Washington, Virginia, and full-time cattle rancher. And I see on a day-by-day basis how the big food industrial complex has completely changed the narrative into what is healthy. They can take highly processed foods that are basically waste products, throw a little of this in them, a little of that in them, and none of it which is healthy, and it's destroying the health of America. I was a young teenager in 1978, about the same age as you, and I heard a statistic the other day, and it's certainly true. The average woman today outweighs the average man from 1978, and it's because of the obesity and health crisis that we see on a daily basis. I have to try to re-educate people about the health and well-being of beef and whole natural foods, and how to try to get away from processed crap. So those are 2 of my main passions is health and wellness, and restoring the viability of cattle ranching for this country, because I truly believe that, as you know, more and more cattle ranchers are getting old and retiring, and there's nobody to replace them. And there will be a critical mass time where we will be completely dependent upon foreign countries and these foreign multinational packers that really don't care about this country. They care about one thing, and that's their profits. And that's a national security crisis as far as I'm concerned. So I've sort of taken that as one of my life's missions. I tell my wife and my children all the time that everybody needs a purpose in life, and that's one of my purposes in life. So that's why I'm so adamant about this, and so I work so hard at it.
And, it's a fascinating journey that you explain, because, to honor your heritage, your ancestors, everything that you came from, we have thousands of families that have come exactly where you came from. The source of the seed is the same. It's from the soil up. It was based on animal welfare, soil welfare, basically feeding your family the best nutrition you could. It's as simple as that. And what we have lost as a nation is basically that freedom to do so, from a financial standpoint, from an educational standpoint. Whenever I was in Thailand, they have something called the Elders Doctrine that they kind of live by. And what that is, it's a passing of intelligence of food. And what that does, it does start from the ground up. And, to make that your life mission, that's what I chose to do about 4 years ago as well. We come from different parts of the country. I'm from West Texas, the Llano Estacado. It's a different world. But one thing is the same is the cow and where we come from, as far as basically knowing what the cow has done in clean food, clean nutritional protein, what it's done for our nation, and how we've actually lost it. And you bring up the point of the multinational corporations, the packers, the processors, the distributors, whatever you need to understand and associate them with. We have lost basically market access to our nutrition and to the empowerment and basically the ability for the independent sovereign rancher to be able to facilitate what our grandparents did in a way that they did it. And that's because we now have very few people processing our food. I think it's 80% of multinational companies are now processing 80% of our food. Well, that says something right there. And you bring up a point, and I want people to understand what you just said. If we lose control of the market access and the ability to process our own animal protein, we are handing it over to foreign companies that basically have nothing in mind except to control the consumption model of a nation. And when they can do that, it doesn't matter who controls the money. It doesn't matter who controls anything. If they control the food in the way they do, that means our children will not have the ability to have the nutritional background in which you and I came from. It's as simple as that. And this is what we're doing as far as a collaboration with the Beef Initiative and the U.S. Cattlemen's Association and anybody that chooses to come through this gateway. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. a couple of points that I want to just elaborate on. This is the success of the American rancher and the American farmer is so important to this nation because, by raping rural America of its wealth, by skimming all the profits off and basically farmers and ranchers having just barely a subsistence for what they do that's so important, you ruin the economic scenario or the scene in rural America, and rural America is wrought with poverty and drug addiction, and it's just harmful. It's really sad what this lack of true free market capitalism in our nation's breadbasket through the West and Midwest and rural Virginia and Texas has done to those economies and to the people there. And, that's one thing. And then the health thing is another thing. But the other thing is, I live in Virginia. I live about 70 miles southwest of Washington, D.C. And it's rural area. But let me tell you something. There are not many cattle here. Why aren't there many cattle here? Because it's not profitable. You drive down in this area of the world, we have something called land use taxation, where in order to promote and prevent everything from being developed and growing houses, we have something called land use taxation. Land use taxation is put in to try to help farmers and ranchers keep their property in farms and ranches. Well, we have a lot of wealthy people that move in here and buy big properties, and they have no inclination and no knowledge to continue on the ranching. And so they'll, rent out or basically give their property to somebody just to run cattle, or give their property just to somebody to make hay on. And you see a lot of these properties, they're being mismanaged. You look at a property that's owned and run by a cattle rancher and look at the health of the grass and the environment and the soils. And then you go by a property that is not in agriculture, and it is just starkly different on the quality of the grasses and the abundance of the grasses and the diversification of the grasses on those properties. Cattle are obviously good for our environment, despite what a lot of the environmental alarmists and extremists want to try to say. I mean, I think that's just another push for control over our lives, and it's just evident when you go by these places where they have cattle and they're being actively farmed and ranched in an appropriate manner, versus the ones where they're just raping the land and taking hay off or not putting anything back. It's bad for bad for the land, it's bad for the environment, and it's bad for the economy to not have a healthy cattle rancher.
Let's go back to the communities, the rural communities, because I come from small town Texas, you come from small town Virginia. I drove over 60,000 miles last year in about 7 months across this nation. And everywhere I went, I saw a new layer of poverty on top of the existing layer of poverty. The existing layer of poverty really took hold in the 70s. And that was a time that we went through a basically industrial food shift. And we went through, we got off the gold standard with our dollar. We debased our money. We debased our food in ways that people don't understand. We debased our land too. And we basically took the power out of those small communities. And, how did that happen? What was the consequence? Well, one thing that happened, and I'll refer to Texas, is that we had 254 counties in the state of Texas, right? That's how many counties we have. We also had 254 processing centers. Those processing centers were in those small communities, and they processed the basically animal protein that community raised in the regenerative way in which you say. And they had many different protocols, with beef back then. Everybody does. We have different genetics. We have different inputs. We have all kinds of different things. You can't really compare and contrast. What you do is you collaborate. And that's what our grandfathers and ancestors did. They collaborated on how to use the land tools, the cattle themselves, to better the land so you could have another year of basically sustainability of your food, of your animals, your family, and the soil. And that is something that has been taken out of our basically mindset and intelligence base within our academic institutions, within the lives of our children, because they're not in rural America anymore. Everybody fled to the cities starting in the 80s. And so you do see a pattern over the last 50 years, and that is the timeline of your and I's, lifespan here. That's how we can reflect on this. This is how we can understand where we came from, the issues at hand, and where we want to take this. And it becomes daunting to a lot of people. And, I always basically, how I created the Beef Initiative, I went up to Justin Trammell in Canyon, Texas, where I grew up, and I went and shook his hand. And we had a conversation, and I built a relationship with him. And, whenever people kind of understand this type of food intelligence and lack thereof and what has happened to this nation, they don't know where to start. They really don't. It's like, what can I do as the individual? And, that's as simple as I can do it, is establish a relationship with somebody in your community that is basically out there still working to feed you. And it's the biggest, basically, asset that you can create in your community. That's my perspective. And for you, where you are in Virginia, I think that you have the same thing. And I mean, that's why we're going to have the basically the Ginger Hills Beef Initiative Summit there on your ranch, so people can come and shake some hands. So what are your thoughts on basically whenever you're trying to educate people and you want them to know what is the best place for somebody really to take hold and change their lifestyle, change their consumer demand to those ranchers, producers that are trying to feed us?
Not sure exactly what you want me to comment on there. Hope straighten me out if I'm heading in the wrong direction.
No problem.
First of all, try to educate yourself as far as a nutritional basis. We're fed propaganda every day. The big corporations have a tremendous amount of money and spend millions and millions of dollars for promotion. And I have people that come in to see me all the time that say, "Oh yeah, I eat healthy," and then I ask them what they eat, and I have to explain to them that no, that's Cheerios are not healthy.
They're not heart healthy.
Yeah, they're not heart healthy. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, as a cattle rancher, and most of the cattle ranchers that I know, they would be more than happy to establish a relationship with, the average person from the city, because there's so many misconceptions about what cattle ranchers do and what they're all about. And I think getting to know one would certainly give them appreciation for how much hard work and then how much heart and effort and just your heart and soul. You put your heart and soul into it when you run a ranch or a farm, and it's what you love to do. You wouldn't do it if you didn't love to do it. I mean, nobody does it for the money, that's for sure. And I think it would give each other a better understanding of one another. Like we are raising this food regeneratively, and it is healthy, and we're not tainting it with these growth hormones and these antibiotics and this and that. And so I think just opening up, just shaking a hand and opening up a dialogue will help both sides, the consumer and the producer, better understand one another and what they want. I think consumers, they need to educate themselves about what's going on in the world today and how they're being fooled with labels that are mislabeled and fooled with advertising. One of my pet peeves is that when I go to the grocery store, which is very, very seldom, but you walk in there and you see these big signs and it says low fat. It's like, oh, this is healthy. I'm going to go get it because it's low fat. Well, that's code for high sugar. And consumers got to realize that low fat is not healthy and that high fat is not bad for you. It's actually good for you. So I think, consumers can educate themselves by looking for other sources of nutritional education, and also getting to know farmers and ranchers, and farmers and ranchers would benefit from that process as well.
You bring up a good point. In the Beef Initiative is about education. You're about education as far as from the medical and the ranching side of the coin. One thing that I've met and that I've discovered meeting all the ranchers that have come through the Beef Initiative is that I asked them, and every one of them, almost to the T, they always say, well, I'm an educator first. I love to educate people. I love to educate about why I do what I do and how I do it, because it's it's proof of work. It's saying, hey, this is what I find valuable in my life, and I want you to understand, everything that's involved with what I do, even though it's hard. And most ranchers second guess themselves every day, saying, why am I doing this? I was talking with Cole Bolton the other day with Hometown Meats and KNC Cattle down in Luling, and we were on the phone with each other, and he was delivering some product to basically a local resident. He goes, hey, hold on a second, Slim. And he put his phone in his pocket. And this the customer, shook his hand. Cole and them had a conversation, but the customer said, I just want you, he found out that I was on the phone with Cole at the same time. And he goes, I just want both of y'all to know that y'all are doing God's work. This is amazing what you guys are doing, because I'm feeding my family now. I didn't know I had this opportunity or this access to be able to have access to this type of beef, to this type of nutrition. And that's what I really want everybody to understand, is that you can build a relationship, you can get educated, and it really does start with shaking a man's or woman's hand that is in the ranching industry across this nation. It's definitely something that is achievable by all. And that's why I really encourage everybody to kind of point your compass in the direction in what the Beef Initiative is doing, what the U.S. Cattlemen's Associations are doing. This collaboration that's going on is actually something that's going to gain momentum, and it has, because you and I met each other a little over 6-7 months ago, and here we are. We're going to have a summit at your ranch. And it's based on really one thing. In the end, it's based on giving the voice to the great American rancher, and in collaboration of being a health initiative for this nation as well. And how do we do that together? We're going to kind of explain it there at the ranch itself, at the summit itself. Let's talk about what are we going to do there. Let's give everybody kind of a tour of what they can expect whenever they do come to the Beef Initiative Summit at Ginger Hill Angus Ranch.
Well, we're gonna run some tours in the morning for anybody that's interested in actually touring the program, and look at the cattle, look at the grass, look how we manage our cattle, how they're cared for, and what goes into cattle ranching, and try to explain the day-to-day process that goes into raising good quality beef. Then I'll welcome everybody and tell them a little bit about the history of Ginger Hill Angus. And obviously you're going to be there. And we hope Cole will come up as well and talk about the processing end of it. We're going to have several panels. We're going to have a woman's panel. And I think the name of it is, what's the name of the woman's panel? It's increasing.
I always just reflect back to the heritage woman.
Yeah, navigating connectivity or something. Anyway, basically how to get back to raising families like they should be, and how to avoid the perils there's so many perils that go on in today's world. We're going to have a portion where Leah Biondo from USCA and I talk about what we're doing at USCA and the important initiatives in Washington, D.C. that we're working on. I'm going to talk about health and wellness. And as our keynote speaker, we're going to have Robert Malone, who's a good friend of mine. He's going to talk about basically anything to talk about, but he's the mRNA technology and is a huge critic of the mRNA vaccines. And I think the new hot topic that's coming out is they've been doing studies and research on mRNA vaccines in livestock. And so he's going to talk a little bit about that as well. Just try to let everybody know what's going on with that and what the future holds for the beef industry and the livestock industry. But I think it's going to be a very educational event. We're also, as you know, we slaughtered a steer the other day. He's hanging now. He'll be coming in quarters, and Butch will be slicing him up and preparing him to eat, and basically giving a demonstration on how that's done, and preparing for the participants there so they can watch their meat being prepared and cooked right there on an open fire.
That's a good rundown. And I'm going to be driving from Central Texas all the way up to Virginia. And one thing that basically, coming back from overseas, the one big hot topic, and I think it's a golden opportunity for you and I right now to set the record straight, to get everybody understanding mRNA vaccines in cattle and basically livestock. Let's tell the nation right now with authority, where do we stand? What can we do? What does the individual need to understand? What does the mother and father need to basically begin to pay attention to when it comes to these types of vaccination programs that are going on or might be going on? They haven't yet, but I'll let you kind of set the record straight. Let's get an even playing field and get some clarity going, because there's a lot of confusion out there.
Yeah, there is a lot of confusion. And basically, as we know with the most recent pandemic and the mRNA vaccines that were used for COVID-19, there wasn't complete transparency. We were told a lot of things. A lot of things were misrepresented. The average consumer thought that these vaccines were, well, first of all, they didn't really understand how they worked, but they thought that these vaccines were like any typical vaccine. They also thought that they were safe and effective. They never basically did any long-term safety trials on them. It was rushed through. And they also didn't do any trials to show that the vaccine actually prevented infection, which it doesn't. So I think the first thing that the American consumer needs to do is demand transparency on these trials, because we just don't want to take anybody's word for it that they say, hey, it's like this, like this. No, let's show us the data. Let's let experts outside of pharma look at the data and say, yeah, it is safe, it is effective. But until we get those trials, I think there should be some pushback on it, because we don't know what the long-term ramifications would be. Initially, they told us the mRNA vaccines for humans, they were going to inject it in your shoulder and it was going to stay there and be gone within 5 to 7 days. Now we're finding out that there are studies that show that it's in your body, can be in your body for at least 6 months. Who knows if it's in longer, and it continues to produce the pathogenic spike protein. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing so many adverse events, is because the pathogen is actually continually being produced in the human body. There are a lot of things that need to be answered. Does it permanently change your genome? Some Swedish scientists have shown that the mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 in vitro, meaning in a lab setting, can reverse transcriptase itself into the DNA of human liver cells. That's scary to me. Does it reverse transcriptase into your your genetic material, so you will pass this down to future generations? It has been shown that spike protein and mRNA is in the breast of breast milk on mothers. So there are a lot of safety trials that we just need to demand that they're done. I'm not anti-progress, anti-technology. Somebody's going to say I'm anti-science if I'm against mRNA vaccines. No, I'm not anti-science. I'm pro-science. We just need to do the science right. And the consuming public needs to demand this, and they need to educate themselves on this, and not just take everything as a slick paper advertising. I mean, I'm a doctor, and pharmaceutical reps come in all the time, and they show you these slick paper ads with all these figures, but we want to know how you got to that. How do you get to that point? So that's my biggest concern is to make sure that there are long-term safety trials, good, accurate long-term safety trials. All the data is completely transparent, and that the vaccine does what it's supposed to do and is as safe as what they say it is.
And I mean, that's a fantastic, overview of like where we came from, where we are, where we're going to move forward. One thing that keeps popping up in my head, and we all want change. We all want everybody to do good, and the pharmaceutical companies and the multinational corporations to do good. But I'm going to start getting very firm with this. The reason they do what they do is because of our consumer demand and of our acceptance. We accepted a lack of transparency. We accept the fact that we know that we're not eating the best food. We accept a lot of things that basically kind of help fuel the fire, to say. And so if we can change the consumer demand, basically, of, ourselves, are basically the independent person that is, makes up the family, makes up the community, then they won't do it anymore. And we don't have to participate. We don't have to ask for permission here to eat good food and to have clean health.
Yeah. And, that's a great point. In my medical practice every day, when I get a new patient that comes in, I always ask them what their vaccine status is, because it's important for me as a physician to know their vaccine status for both pros and cons. And overwhelmingly, most of the people say that are new patients come in and say, no, I didn't get it, or yes, I got it, but I'm not taking any more. And I think there has been a, massive pushback against this, at least in the COVID pandemic, the vaccine. And I think it's going to spill over into the cattle industry as far as consumers and what consumers think is healthy. And that was the reason why I want to demand complete transparency, because if it isn't healthy, it doesn't need to be used. If it is healthy and safe, then we need to make everybody comfortable with it, because I think this will be a big negative black eye for beef and beef consumption, and negatively affect beef consumption if it's just pushed through and we don't have any transparency, and the general public doesn't have a real good sense that this is indeed safe.
And one good way that the individual and, the consumer can do is to stop right now, stop basically buying from the multinationals, basically go ahead and establish that relationship with the rancher, because you are not going to accept mRNA in your cattle. It's as simple as that. Everybody in the beef, go ahead.
Yeah, when you're exactly right. I mean, when somebody comes to me and I mean, we're, as you know, you're a purebred seed stock operation, but we do sell beef to consumers, and we just did that, basically with a backyard barbecue, and the word spread, and now I don't have to advertise at all, and we just get rid of all the beef that we produce in that part of our program. But when you look a consumer in the eye, and they look the rancher in the eye, and they develop a relationship, there's a lot of trust there. There's a lot of trust to that rancher, and there's a lot of trust the rancher has for the consumer. Make sure he's going to pay for the product and not try to pull any monkey business. But there's a lot of trust there, and they can ask the rancher exactly how this beef is raised and what this beef has had, and they'll know exactly where it came from and know whether it has any products that are not natural in it. All they got to do is ask and develop that relationship. So that's a huge point. And I'm finding that more and more people want to know where their beef comes from. They get a superior product when they buy it directly from the rancher. And I think if I didn't raise cattle, I would definitely, I know a lot of ranchers, I would definitely buy my beef locally and not buy it from the big multinationals.
It's a no-brainer. And, I always say it's so simple, it's complicated. We're kind of that far removed, from the lifestyle, from Western heritage, from, the cattle rancher itself, from food itself. And I tell people, I said, your life improves when you go out there and establish a relationship with a person that's trying to feed you. And it comes with obligation. And that obligation comes with a form of trust that I think this nation is yearning for. We want that transparency. We want that authenticity of relationship and of food. And it's the best, basically, roadmap that you can take as far as a family, as a parent, as an individual to, change your lifestyle, change your behavior a little bit, and you understand the true value that goes along with establishing that relationship that does lead to a form of trust that, my life is better because I've met you, Brooke. And that's something that people need to understand. This Likewise. Is not about, thank you. And this is not about being a consumer. This is about exchanging value for value. This is about establishing relationship with somebody you want to send Christmas cards to. every year. It's an obligation that our grandparents had. It's a form of building community in this digital world in which we live in. We know for a fact that not everybody's going to be able to leave Manhattan or Boston or whatever major metropolitan area and go shake a rancher's hand. But through platforms and grassroots movements such as the U.S. Cattlemen's Association and the Beef Initiative, you can either physically go in there and basically drive down the turnpike or whatever you need to do to go shake a rancher's hand, or you can come through and digitally shake a rancher's hand and make that connection. And wherever the entry point is, this is what we are doing collectively together. And that's why we have these events. It's for the education, to bring clarity to the confusion that's going on, the corruption of information, the information war that we're living in, the censorship that Robert Malone had to go through during the last 3 years, the censorship of basically anybody understanding what's going on in the beef industry, because that is controlled by the multinational processing centers. The amount of money that they have behind the force in which they have become is daunting. Well, how do you get out of this? And you get out of, the multinational corporations is basically, taking that freedom of being able to steward our lives in ways that a lot of people don't understand. And why we have these events it is the education. It is going out there and being close to the land tools themselves, getting out there on the land and being able to meet those people and establishing those relationships that mean something to you right now. We can do it in a digital way through the Beef Initiative and U.S. Cattlemen's Association's platforms. It's a form of networking that is somewhat decentralized. It is something that we all have the opportunity, and now we have the pathway. The pathway is very broad, but the gateway is becoming more and more narrow of how people can get this form of food intelligence. And, I encourage everybody to basically, I talk about a consumption model. Your audio, your video, and your food consumption model are correlated in ways that I think a lot of people don't understand. And if you can change your consumption model, it leads into a health initiative. Our children of this nation deserve better health. They deserve better nutrition. You have this backdrop behind me. I'm in Austin, Texas. I'm right next to the University of Texas, right there. It's the 40 acres. I came here when I was 19 years old. This strip behind me was local restaurants, local food that was sourced locally, from barbecue joints to burger joints to Mexican food. It's all gone now. And it's all you can look. It's fast food, fast food, fast food. I tell everybody that fast food and convenience stores are now, or fast food is the new restaurant and the convenience store is the new supermarket. And it couldn't be more true. And this is what right now I'm sitting in a food desert in the richest city of youth and young minds in the state of Texas. And it's a food desert. And I think a lot of people don't understand how much and how far we've come and how far we've been separated from having market access to that clean food. And
yeah, you're exactly right, because most people are going to supermarkets. And I went into a supermarket back over Christmas, and I was appalled at the quality of the food that was being offered for sale and the promotion that they were pushing on these people. And it's addictive. Sugar's the most addictive drug on the planet. I mean, it's more addictive than, all these drugs, because you know what? Probably about 80-90% of our population is addicted to it. And most of my day is just spent at trying to re-educate people to get them to take control of their health and their well-being. And the biggest thing is the quality and the type of food that they eat. I fight this every day. Diabetes and fatty liver disease are probably two of the biggest things that I see on a day-to-day basis. And people can take control of their health and improve their health and their lot in life just by, eating good, clean foods like beef. As you know, I'm a carnivore, and I changed my health through cutting out carbs and plant food. I see it over and over and over again. You can reverse. I wasn't a type 2 diabetic, but I probably had something called metabolic syndrome where my blood pressure was high. My triglyceride counts were high. My good cholesterol, quote, HDL cholesterol was low. Within 3 months of being a total carnivore, I had reversed all of that. I got off antihypertensive medication. My cholesterol and lipid panel improved dramatically. And some other things that I noticed was, you know, I have a family history of Alzheimer's dementia. And one of my fears is developing Alzheimer's dementia in my lifetime. And I'm trying to do everything I can to prevent that, and eating good, healthy, whole food, which beef is probably the #1 food that I do eat, improves mental clarity and improves brain function and reduces inflammation throughout the body and throughout the brain. And I can tell it when I eat right and when I don't eat right. And you know, the other place that I can tell it is in my joints. I'm 62 years old, almost 63 years old. I used to be a competitive masters CrossFitter, but really don't have the time to do that. And I have an arthritic shoulder that injured from years of sports and athletics growing up. But I was getting so, when I was eating a standard American diet, I was getting so picking up the weight was painful in my hands and my wrists. Go back on a complete carnivore diet where you eliminate all plant food, and within 3 to 5 days, all the arthritis in my hands had left. My shoulder was feeling immensely better. So there's so many health benefits from beef, and I just want the general public to know that, because I see so much disease and morbidity and mortality brought on by these crap foods that are these waste products that are being sold through the grocery stores. And if you buy directly from the source, you're not going to get that crap food. You're going to get good, healthy food. The other thing that I hear all the time is, well, I love beef, but I just can't afford it. Well, that's poppycock too. Your grocery bill will go down if all you eat is good, clean food. You will not consume as much. You will not be obsessed about food. And the other thing it'll help is your health. You won't have any health bills either. So it's economically, it makes sense, both from a health standpoint and from a monetary standpoint, to eat good, clean health food.
I mean, that's a fantastic rundown, because, you know, we have a lot of, first off, Brooke, man, I thought you were about 52 years old. So way to go, man. No, it's a compliment.
I wish.
But what you just said, because we have a lot of doctors that come through the Beef Initiative and kind of see, you know, tell us what they're seeing with their patients. And everyone that you just named off, from metabolic, you know, failure to bankruptcy to diabetes to heart disease to joint failure to inflammation to fatty liver disease, it's all across the board, right? And, you know, the health of this nation is bankrupt. We prove it every day. 88% of our population at this point in time is now metabolically deficient or compromised. And a lot of people don't even know what metabolic health means. But what it means is overall health of basically who you are. Mind, body, and spirit goes along with your metabolic health. You can't deny it. And it's something that we have lost over the last 50 years, our lifetimes. And so everything that you just said is reflected with every person, rancher and doctor, coming through the Beef Initiative, and everybody that you speak with. You know, we're friends with Dr. Sean Baker. You know, we have testimony. This is what this is. This is proof of work. This is something that basically does change people's lives. It's not a marketing plan. It's something that we, from a grassroots level, want people to know about. And the amount of basically idealism that's thrown into the marketing plans to our youth, to our children, to the women of this nation, you know, whenever you can get a society to nutritionally starve themselves willingly based on these idealistic labeling and marketing plans, you know, you don't have to do much else, because their health will fail and they will be compliant, and they'll basically need you. And it's a form of codependency that really is getting scary. And what we have to do, we, the individuals, have to start taking action. We have to listen to the people that are living it And you're one of those. I mean, very few people out there right now in the United States of America is both a rancher and a doctor. So you really cannot argue with the proof of work and what you see on a daily basis and how it correlates. And I told everybody about the beef initiative from the beginning. I said, it's a great American health initiative, and it's going to be led by the great American rancher. And a lot of
I
people.
think that's, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think that's one of the things that why I'm so passionate about the beef initiative is because I am a doctor and I see on a day-to-day basis how people have ruined their health. One of the, when I try to educate people and I tell them about eating beef and what it can do for you, unfortunately, most of America has been brainwashed about cholesterol, as cholesterol causing heart disease and fat causing heart disease, and it's just blatantly false. When I came through medical school, there were no such things as statins, but there were a lot of drugs that lowered cholesterol. And the pharmaceutical industry, even with the way they design these studies to come out like they want them to, they could not design a study where these cholesterol lowering drugs reduce your risk of heart disease or stroke. Well, finally, they came out with some studies that showed some minor, some not great, but some significant reduction in recurrent heart attack in people who had heart disease and strokes with the statins. And everybody jumped on it. Oh my God, it's because they lower your cholesterol. They do lower your cholesterol, but it's all about inflammation. It's in that inflammation in the arterial wall that causes the damage, that lays down the plaque, that causes or predisposes you to atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, stroke, and heart attack. And they don't understand that that is driven by excess carbohydrates, excess insulin resistance and inflammation. And, a good, healthy beef diet can reverse all that. And I just spend my time educating people on this, and I see the health benefits every day on those that do take my advice and change their diets. And that's one reason why I'm so passionate about this. Because if we lose the American rancher, we're going to lose our source of healthy food too in this country. And it's really going to be disastrous for this country on multiple levels. And as you know, the big food industry and big pharma, they're pretty much in collaboration. I mean, big food on sugar and processed food and seed oils. And then big pharma says, well, the only thing that we can do about this is give you drugs. And it's just a really, really, really bad health model. That's for sure. But it's a great model if you want to, buy stock in one of the pharmaceutical companies or the big food companies and make a lot of profit. That's for sure.
Well, that profit's getting less and less. Our money's, we have hyperinflation. The dollar's getting devalued as we speak in a lot of different ways. And one thing that you can do is, I always say, get back to the source of the seed of where we came from. And people are yearning for a lifestyle change. They are yearning for some education that does come from, transparency and authenticity. And, I told everybody from the beginning as well, this is an international lifestyle that you just don't understand yet. And, the thing about it, there are no borders here to good health. There are no borders on how you steward the land and the animals. There are no borders on how we can steward our families moving forward. And what we do is we work together. We take out the competition mindset. We take out the scarcity mindset. And we know that there's a wealth of knowledge out there because our ancestors gave it to us. We know there's a wealth of nutrition out there because we're living proof of it. And we try to do that every day. We want everybody to understand. We want to share. We want to give back. We want to collaborate. We want to open up our gates. And that's what, the rancher might not know how to open up its gate. And I know, coming from big tech, being a research analyst for my adult life, growing up in agriculture in West Texas, being in big tech, that the rancher has never had a voice in the last 50 years. They haven't had a digital voice, and they haven't been able to open up their gates to their community because they lost their community because those processing centers were taken out of their communities and handed over to the multinational corporations. It was basically, an effect that happened throughout the decades One thing that the Beef Initiative is going to do this year, and I know that you're behind us 100%, is that we are going to basically start consulting on processing centers because we have proof of work, we have precedents in the state of Texas as far as the state of Texas licensings and certifications, and we have USDA. We know what passes the regulatory basically regulations, the inspections themselves. And the one problem that a lot of people don't understand about processing centers is that the law doesn't even know how to enforce the microprocessing center regulations and inspections. And that's something that we're going to start bringing a lot of clarity to. Whenever you have a processing center that processes 5,000 cattle a day, all the way down to a microprocessing center that might do 5 a day or 2 a day, well, those inspections and regulations are a lot different. The law hasn't caught up with itself. And that's what we're doing in the Beef Initiative Association Council is we're basically saying, hey, we've got precedents here and we can do this across the nation. And we're ready to do that. And we're ready to move forward with that.
Yeah, that's so important because the bottleneck, as you know, is processing. Currently, right now, there's so few processors in this area. I have to schedule cattle at least a year in advance.
Yeah.
Before I even have, I know I'm going to have some consumers. Before I know how many cattle, I just sort of got to estimate how many I'm going to have to slaughter the next year. But that is a huge roadblock for cattle ranchers, and we do need more small microprocessors all over the country. Be a lot more efficiently to feed our nation and not ship these cattle all over the country to these big, huge multinational mega plants, where if one mega plant goes offline, we all of a sudden we have shortage of beef in the grocery store. That's just a poor model. But for years and years and years, we were told bigger is more efficient and bigger is better. And now we've come, the COVID-19 pandemic when a couple of the workers in some of these plants got infected and they basically had to shut them down. That just created terrible shortages in the supply chain. And what we saw was not only shortages in the supply chain, but we saw the multinationals basically taking advantage of that and jacking up prices in the grocery store to astronomical amounts, and then also reducing producers' prices because they said, "Oh, we don't have any capacity to kill your cattle. We can't pay you X, but we can pay you X minus Y." And then the consumers, seeing these really high priced beef in the grocery store, and they were forced. They had no other choice. Whereas if they'd had a relationship with a rancher, their food supply would have been not only a lot healthier, but a lot more steady and a lot more reliable. The other thing you mentioned was inflation and our dollar. And that's one of the other things that brought me to the Beef Initiative. And while I'm not even close to being, I'm still an infant in my ability to discuss Bitcoin. But the freedom and the independence that basically signifies makes it a no-brainer to me, where people can exchange value at the click of a button without having anybody in between it, and nobody making more of them to make yours less worthless. I mean, the dollar bill that I have in my pocket now is probably worth and buy about half as much as it could a year ago.
Yeah.
Especially when you take into account the interest rates and inflation that they're putting on it. It's so this Beef Initiative is about freedom, sound monetary policy, health, regenerative agriculture, and ensuring our nation's food supply.
It really is. And, I want everybody to, that's a good point to bring up right now, since you kind of mentioned, Bitcoin, the Beef Initiative, the why behind it all. The Beef Initiative is always for the voice of the American rancher and producer. One thing that they rely on is good monetary means. And whenever I saw Bitcoin and what it did, it's a peer-to-peer transaction. And what it is nobody can control that peer-to-peer transaction. It's legal. It is basically, Bitcoin is looked at as property. The ranchers that spend a little time to start educating on Bitcoin, they get it. They have that mindset, that decentralized peer-to-peer mindset that our grandfathers did. It is a handshake that nobody can tell you can't do that handshake. That's why it's such a powerful tool. And it's a tool, it's technology. It's just like anything else. And, we're so early on, but the ranchers that do get it, I always tell them, I say, okay, how much you paying the credit card company right now whenever you have to swipe that credit card? Well, that's 3% that rancher producer that you have to do whenever you sell a box of beef or whatever you're selling, half a cow or a quarter cow, whatever it is. Well, hey, rancher producer, why don't you eliminate that 3%? Just save it in Bitcoin and you can continue doing your business where you're saving money now instead of giving it to the credit card companies. There's an entry point of discovery for everybody that basically wants to use Bitcoin. And one thing that the producers and ranchers probably, there's a lot of nefarious, information about Bitcoin itself too. Well, we know it's legal. We know it's property. It is technology. A lot of people are afraid of technology. I remember coming up through big tech when people were terrified to buy a pair of shoes on the internet. They didn't want to use their credit card. And it's the same with, technology. It takes a while for, adoption and acceptance and transformation and, for people to really start bringing it into their lives. I believe it's one of the most powerful tools that have come down the pipe for the rancher producer who wants to sell peer to peer to the people that are in their community, or whoever their basically, consumer is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think these micro summits that we're having here, the Beef Initiative micro summits are going to be so helpful, not only in connecting consumers to ranchers, but, there are a lot of people that already know a little bit about Bitcoin that will be attending this that want to get good, healthy food. And I think it goes a long way to basically educate American ranchers how to use Bitcoin to their advantage. And I'm just hopeful that we'll get a little bit of both at this micro.
Well, I think we will. I mean, we had 7 of them last year in 2022. And one thing that we found out from the very beginning, it's been a year since we had our first summit in Kerrville. The very first one, a good friend of mine, David, he said, I can't believe it. He goes, we have Bitcoiners, orange pilling ranchers, and ranchers ranch pilling Bitcoiners. And it's all balanced. It's like a good balance that's going on, and it is. It's an equal opportunity of education, and everybody just gets along. And it is a fascinating thing to watch.
Well, one thing that I've noticed, I'm a freedom lover like you are, and cattle ranchers are definitely freedom lovers, and so are Bitcoiners. So it's pretty much a marriage made in heaven to have two groups that are pretty diverse and very different, yet have the same ideals and goals in life, very similar. It's rather refreshing.
It really is. And we were on the phone last week, and I think we were having kind of a call for the summit itself. And you brought up that fact. I mean, coming from where you are as far as a rancher, a doctor, coming from the outside, not understanding Bitcoin, but you were talking to Liz, and she's kind of taking over the event coordination for the Beef Initiative. You're saying, and you told her, you said, man, the Bitcoiners are a very tight group of people. They really are. They're very intentional, just the way that we basically collaborate and how we organize and, communicate. You don't see it too much. And I have to back you up on that. It's true. It's one of the most powerful aspects of the Beef Initiative from the very beginning. Cole Bolton asked me, he goes, why did you start with Bitcoin? But then he called me up about, 3 months later, he goes, I know exactly why you started with the Bitcoin community. And to give people a little bit of backstory, you and I didn't know each other. We would have never have met each other, no matter how much the Beef Initiative had success and the U.S. Cattlemen's Association had success. It was brought together by first Amanda and Matt, knowing Marty Bent reaching out to you doing a podcast with Marty Bent. I've done podcasts with Marty Bent, and here we go. We have a collaboration that was grassroots. It's grass-fed. It's done in a decentralized way that happens naturally and holistically. That is powerful. It really is.
It's just a stroke of luck that my son-in-law and daughter are Bitcoiners, and I'm a cattle. Right. Well, that's how I got to meet you and Marty and Cole and everybody. So
Yeah, and then we were there in Nashville together. You came to the one at Bitcoin Park, and we went to the national convention there in Nashville as well for the U.S. Cattlemen's Association. You were able to meet Cole Bolton. You were able to meet Jason Rick of Rick Ranches, and Cole's multi-generational rancher. Jason's first generational out there in Colorado. They do a lot of things differently, but they do have an association and they have a friendship now, and it's because of Bitcoin. It's because they've adopted beef and Bitcoin. And once you get it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, I know. We as American ranchers, I mean, the United States Cattlemen's Association is going to continue to fight the good fight and try to, lobby and get laws and rules and regulations passed that are favorable for the American cattle ranchers. But, cattle ranchers, if we're going to survive we've got to start looking at things differently and doing things different. And the beef initiative basically goes around that regulatory portion to an extent to try to direct market to people and consumers. And we get these surveys, these post meeting surveys, and they ask people, why didn't you come? Was it too expensive, to this, to that? And unfortunately, what we saw a lot of responses were on why people in the United States Cattlemen's Association, if they didn't come to Nashville, it was one, I'm too old. Okay, so we got the American cattle rancher that is basically dying off. Two, I have no help. Why does he have no help? Because it's not profitable enough for him to employ somebody that can take care of the ranch while he's gone, and takes 2 days to go to Nashville to meet and network with people all over the world. Or three, I couldn't afford it.
Yeah,
that's pretty bad. I mean, there's three big, huge rules. I mean, we got an old population of people. We've got financial restrictions and no help. I mean, how can that model sustain itself?
it can. And it's now it's by design, because of we know the nefarious stuff that's going on against the rancher, against beef itself on a global front and even on the national front by the multinationals. And you bring up,
they want to tell you how beef is bad for you and how beef is bad for the environment. Yet they want to control the food sources. They want to give you fake food. They want to make it in a lab and tell you that it's good for you and it's healthier. And it's just a bunch of poppycock. None of it is transparent at all. How could we improve upon the model of what Mother Nature and God gave us?
Exactly. And to that point, a lot of people don't really realize beef production across this world is going to go up. What's going to happen is the United States citizens going to have very little market access to that beef. And that is being done by the multinational corporations, because they're selling our resources to the highest bidders on the global market. That is the plan. And it's not that cows are going away. There's more cows than ever, and they're going to be even more cows. But you're just not going to have market.
They're going to force slave labor and child labor in Brazil to grow our food.
Well, and that's something that a lot of people, I call it the Brazilian cattle drive. They don't understand who created the basically Brazilian beef industry and where that came from. That's a whole podcast within itself. But, one of the multinational processing centers is out of Brazil. And they would love the multinational processing center that's in Brazil would love nothing more for you to eat Brazilian beef, and for our beef that is grown either in Virginia or Texas or anywhere else across the United States, for you not to have market access and it's sold to another foreign company, basically, or country that basically will pay more, and then you would get to eat the slop. Basically, that's all it is, the dog food. And that's where we're going. And a lot of people already are doing that, and they don't even know it because they don't even know the country of origin of their beef. Once again, the lack of really stern labeling laws when it comes to animal proteins, the way that they've corrupted the system is daunting. And that's what a lot of people don't understand right there.
Yeah, they want you to eat slop. They want you to eat something that Bill Gates manufactured, like the Impossible Burger. They call it the Impossible Burger probably because it's impossible to eat.
Exactly. It really is. But you know what? I saw a video of Bill Gates, and he was up there, and I just, I don't like the guy anyways. He's just
Isn't he
something
a picture
else.
of health?
And he is a picture of hell. That guy telling me how to eat and how to live. But he said, and you can go out there and probably find it. He goes, hey, we've got the texture down. We know what we're doing, because we don't have the taste down, but we're almost there. Yeah. And they do. And you look at a company like Royal DSM out of the Netherlands. What do? Well, they've hijacked our taste buds in ways people don't understand. And they are confident that people will consume, this basically impossible meat. And a lot of times people do, they just don't know, because it's hidden within the ingredients itself. And so
they convinced enough people and pull the wool over enough people's eyes to take the COVID-19 MRNA shot. I guess they can fool people into taking anything that they want them to take.
Well, look behind me. All these fast food restaurants, they basically are engineered. They are engineered by food science. And food is not science. Food is biology, and that's what people have lost. They do not understand where food truly comes from. We have to learn how to eat the earth again. And how we get there is we're going out there, we're going to open up gates. And Brooke, you're going to open up your gate, and I'm honored to have met you. I'm honored that we get to go down this path together, this journey as far as the collaboration. And we want everybody to pay attention here. And we want everybody to get their butts to Virginia on April 22nd. So
I tell you what, it's going to be a great time. There's no prettier place on the face of the earth than being in Virginia in mid to late April. And we have a beautiful ranch here. We have some tremendous cattle and some tremendous genetics. I want to share with the world basically what we do, our lifestyle, why we love it so much, and also impart some of hopefully my wisdom from 37 years of being a physician and seeing health and wellness and improve people's health through food and intentional behavior.
It's going to be amazing, and I can't wait to take another road trip across this nation and for it to be the highlight of 2023 to kick this year off. I mean, it's going to be exciting. So let's give some people some where do you want people to go look right now when they're listening to this? We're going to put it in the show notes and everything, but you have a website. Give any information that you want people to follow up on. And of course, I'm going to put this in the Substack, in the newsletter, and everything. But let's go ahead. You go ahead and let everybody know what they should be Google searching these days.
Well, they should be Google searching the Beef Initiative and click on upcoming events, and then go to get tickets. And once you hit to that button that says get tickets, it explains the entire event. There's a bio from all the people that are on the panel. We have some of the greatest Bitcoiners in the world, on the face of the earth, that'll be there, that'll be educating everybody there about that. We'll have, obviously myself, a cattle rancher. We have Leah Biondo, who is in Washington, D.C. for United States Cattlemen's Association. We have my wife, Ann, who's a registered nurse and nurse practitioner. We have Robert and Jill Malone. Robert is the basically one of the world's foremost authorities on mRNA technology. He developed it. He's a huge critic of the mRNA COVID vaccines, and he's going to try to educate. He and Jill actually has a background in animal science as well, and she's a PhD, and they're going to educate the people on mRNA technology and livestock use and other topics that Robert is so passionate about. He himself is a great lover of freedom, and I think he loves Bitcoin too.
That's even better. He's got a lot of people that are paying attention to him these days because of his journey that he just went through, and the expert that he is. And one of the fun things that we're also going to do here is we're going to have the Dane Cattleman's Feast. And, what is the Cattleman's Feast? Well, what it is, it's education of the parts of the cow that we don't even have access to. And why do we not have access to them? Because the multinational processing centers do not basically allow you to have access to them. And so a Cattleman's Feast is, to your point earlier, is that you think that basically consuming beef from a rancher is expensive. It's not. There's an entry point for everybody. There's mothers out there trying to feed their children right now, and the Cattleman's Feast is based on that demand. We want to give them market access to beef that they don't even know exists, cuts of the cow that you can be educated in with the Cattleman's Feast. And that's something that we're really going to explode this year. We're going to replace the backyard barbecue with a Cattleman's Feast, because we're going to give everybody market access to parts of the cow that our grandparents used to feed us, and basically they knew everything about. So this is going to be a hell of a journey this year. This is going to be kicked off on April 22nd at your ranch.
One other thing I want to highlight is well, you will experience it for the first time, but my wife puts on a great hamburger feast with all kinds of good, healthy food with it. And it's a lunch before the Cattleman's Feast. So we're going to actually feed them twice, not just once.
That's true.
Hopefully, you'll agree with me that it'll be probably the best backyard lunch barbecue that you've ever been to in your life, in a beautiful setting. So we've got two great meals waiting for people. So I think the value is definitely there for people. And I will say one thing. So if you're coming, if you don't want to get hooked on beef, don't come.
Exactly. Don't even take up the space.
Yeah.
One thing that always happens with these events is like, hey, is there any lodging? Well, there's plenty of lodging around Washington, Virginia, and the base of, the ranch right there that's close to the Shenandoah National Park and the whole Shenandoah area, the valley, everything. It, like you said, it's some of the most beautiful parts of the country and the world at this time of the year.
Yeah,
so,
we're blessed with some great bed and breakfasts right here in the county, close to our property. But there are also some commercial lodging within 25 miles in Warrenton, Virginia, Culpeper, Virginia, Luray, Virginia, Front Royal, basically in all 4 different directions. So it's just a short 20 minute ride from basically all those places to our ranch, and we're really looking forward to it. I'm getting fired up, and me, I like to talk, so.
Yeah, me too. I just took a trip with my son overseas for 2 months. It's his rite of passage. And I just dropped him off yesterday here in Austin at his mom's house. Well, he drove himself. But anyways, he's tired of listening to me talk. So I need a new audience. And so let's kick it off. But everybody's going to be seeing this Sunday night. We're going to release this. And, time is of the essence, folks. Don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. Take a chance, take off work, do whatever you got to do, make time, make room in your budget, make room in your heart, your mind, your spirit. This is something that's bigger than all of us. And there's a lot of great people that are coming into this mission, into this movement. And it takes every one of you to participate. This is intentional living. It's not random consumption of your audio, your video, or your food. This is a lifestyle that this country deserves. It's where we came from. And we've got a lot of people that are willing to lead this. Lead with us. Take the time. Let's feed our children. This is about saving children's lives. This is about giving these children the nutritional value in which Brooke and I basically were raised with from the ranch itself. So, Brooke, on that note, I want to say thank you. I'm very grateful to have you in my life and to be participating with you in this movement, with your family and everybody else. And on that note, you and I are about to talk to old Butch and work out some details on that Cattleman's Feast. Is there anything in closing you'd like to say?
Well, yeah, I just want people to feel welcome when they come to our ranch, and we're more than happy to take the time to speak to them individually, show them around, and show them our life. I will say that we have a couple of things that they can learn a little bit about myself and our ranch. Obviously, I have a Facebook page, Brooke Miller, MD. We have a Facebook page for our medical practice, Miller Family Health and Wellness. We have a Facebook page for Ginger Hill Angus, which is the purebred cattle operation. And then we also have a website for Ginger Hill Angus at www.gingerhillangus.com. So feel free to look at those websites and those Facebook pages to learn a little bit more about us. And I look forward to meeting a bunch of new friends.
Fantastic, Brooke. And on that note, I'll follow up with, hey, folks, go to thebeefinitiative.com. Upcoming events, like Brooke said. And if you want the whole umbrella of content and media that we produce here at Beef Initiative, go to IamTexasSlim.com. IamTexasSlim.com, because I am Texas Slim, folks. And we're going to see you in Virginia. Brooke, thank you. God bless. And we'll see you soon.
Likewise. Thank you, Slim.
Okay, take care.
Well, I'll tell you what. The kinds of people that I'm meeting here through the Beef Initiative, who I'm about to meet, who I'm constantly meeting. This was the polar opposite of my life a little over a year ago. So I just got to say thank you to everyone who's come on to Texas Slim Show, to I Am Texas Slim podcast. And just hearing Dr. Brooke Miller talk and to hear his graciousness and how he's just so open, inviting strangers onto his ranch. And he's like so many ranchers that Texas Slim has brought into the fold here at the Beef Initiative and who have joined our mission. These are all new friends. And so while Bitcoin is about trustlessness, what we're building is about trust. Because what is a world without trust? It's not really one at all. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, including Dr. Brooke Miller here. Now, I just want to read some of the boost messages from last week from all of your Bitcoin streams and boosts, which in the value for value system is another word for tips. So if you value what we do and what we're bringing to the table, all as volunteers, then please consider sending us a boost in the podcasting 2.0 ecosystem. We love to use fountain.fm, but you can go to podcastindex.org and find a list of apps that you might like. I want to encourage everyone to increase their boosts and their support for 2 incoming staff positions coming into the Beef Initiative and Texas Slims Media, which I'll get into a little bit later. But for now, I just want to say thank you to Nomad Joe. He comes through every week. 1,000 sats this week. Florida Beef Initiative, or Florida Beef is a big part of Florida history. Wishing the Florida Beef Initiative a big success. Appreciate that, Joe. 500 sats from user 178281295547680. 500 sats from Busted Canoe every week. Double stake boost. 333 sats from a monkey. Love y'all. Keep on spreading the word. And 1,500 sats from Bruce R. Lang. Keep on trucking. Bruce is here also every week. I want to thank each and every one of you for always contributing and sharing value with us. This is a community, and we're creating a circular economy, and we're building this thing off of value. So just a few seconds ago, I talked about the 2 incoming staff, internships, apprenticeships that are up on the bitcoinerjobs.com website. So let me tell you a little bit about those positions. We're looking for a digital media specialist, someone with a good eye for art and design, somebody who can do graphic design, video editing, all sorts of stuff in that realm. We've got a lot of media that we're about to unfold starting May 10th. We've got the new beefinitiative.com website launched. And so what comes with that is the Texas Slims Media website. So we're going to be rolling out the documentary series, Bitcoin and the Sovereign Rancher, with Texas Slim, and we're going to film his journey. Me and him are going on the road. We're going all across the country. And so we're going to let this thing unfold, and we need some help along the way. This is a pretty high demand job. It would be helpful if you were already on your feet in some way and maybe looking to make a career change or looking to contribute some time. But one thing I will say is that we're looking for long-term relationships. This is going to be a global media company. And when you see that every single regenerative rancher needs media production, needs a digital voice, I think that you'll be able to see that this is going to be the largest media company, especially as we continue to make inroads into all walks of life. So for the digital media position, we're seeking a talented and creative interns and apprentices to help us with video editing, graphic design, branding, and all things digital media. This is a value for value position, which means you will be paid primarily with streaming income from applications such as Podcasting 2.0, with the opportunity to grow into a full-time paid position in the future. At Texas Slims Media, we are committed to building long-lasting relationships, as I said, with the right people. As an intern or apprentice, you will have the opportunity to work with a team of experts and gain invaluable experience in a fast-paced world of the modern-day cattleman. This position is remote currently, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future. This thing is blowing up. So get on board. You may get a chance to see the world. And you're going to talk to a heck of a lot of interesting people. That I promise you. We're also looking for an internal communications specialist. Texas Slims Media, a subgroup from the Beef Initiative, is looking for an internal communications operator to support our internal communication efforts. The internal communications operator will be responsible for creating, coordinating, and distributing all internal communication materials for the Beef Initiative. This position is remote, and the successful candidate will work closely with the media and marketing team to ensure that all internal communications are on brand and aligned with our mission. Apply at bitcoinerjobs.com today. Now, on that note, I want to give a huge shout out to the people who have already come in as volunteers, as value for value operators in this Texas Slims Media. Specifically, I want to thank a couple people. I want to really, really thank Steve from Echo Bridge. This is an animation team that's done work for HBO and Netflix. And these guys, I met them through the Florida Beef Initiative. They bought beef. And now they understand that they need to lead with beef if they're going to orange pill the world. So now Steve, he's a Bitcoiner, and he's the head of Echo Bridge Animation Studio. Now he has graciously offered his studio's hands and skills and talents to help make this thing, this Texas Slims Media thing, the biggest media company in the world. We're going to scour this earth. And now we have a whole animation team behind us. I like to call it the cavalry. Part of that cavalry is the creative network. These guys have come in and have shown true passion and true insight into what is about to unfold. And that's really what it takes to hang with us. Because I'll be real, you've got to see the future. It's a lot easier than you think. Those with eyes can see. Those with ears can hear. And these guys, they've heard. So shout out to Atlas and crew at the Creative Network. And I also want to give a big shout out to Mike the Shooter, Mike the Bitcoin Shooter. This is a videographer and filmmaker. You've seen his work down at Bitcoin Beach. with Max and Stacy. And he's done a lot of excellent work. I mean, this guy's a real pro. And he's also joined the team of volunteers who are going to help us film this event and get all the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, we're going to have 3 drones flying around Ginger Hill. So this thing's going global, and this thing's bigger than anybody realizes. So if you're someone who wants to help, if you've got a serious talent, now I just named Netflix and HBO type talent. It doesn't all have to be like that, but if you've got a passion, if you can learn, if you're quick, if you've gone down the beef rabbit hole, that's a great first start. Because I know myself how my life transformed when I started eating regenerative beef. So if you're somebody whose life is transformed because of that, or who's currently going down that rabbit hole, then you've got a leg up on all the competition. I'll just let you know that. So if you've got a dream to be a designer, to be an artist, to get involved with something important, if you've got ambitions to grow into something much bigger than what you currently are, it is all possible here. I'm the executive producer of Texas Slims Media. Fix the money, fix the food. My name is June B. I'm out.